Good morning, Bardstown and Nelson County, and welcome to Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford with you on this beautiful, sunny Wednesday morning. Good morning, Margie.
Good morning, Jim.
Well, it's still a little cool out there, but I'll take the sunshine.
Well, yeah, I think our schizophrenic spring is maybe settling in. I don't know. I mean,
Well,
they keep putting it out there and snatching it back.
Well, when I got up this morning, I had frost on my vehicles.
I did too.
So anyway, fortunately, I had it parked facing east, so the sun thawed out the windshield. I didn't have to scrape anything.
Well, I've got one of those little clickers, where you can turn your car on and let it defrost. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, and heated seats are good on a morning.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're the greatest invention since sliced bread.
Yeah, my wife had to drive my car yesterday because of car trouble, and she drives a Jeep, and it's like the very plain Jane version, no bells, whistles, no backup camera,
No backup camera, and no heated seats.
no heated steering wheel. And she didn't want to give it back.
Jeeps are fun.
I wrestled it from her. Wrestled the keys from her. All right. Thanks for joining us today for Bradford and Brooks. We have a very special studio guest. Our Nelson County jailer, Justin Hall, is our guest today. Good morning, Justin.
Good morning, Jim. Good morning, Margie. Thank you all for having me on this nice chilly morning.
Well, I want to, before we get started on jail business, I just wanted to give you kudos. The Nelson County GOP had the Organization of Republican Women actually organized the Lincoln Day dinner. It was at Hall Manor.
Yeah, out the parents there.
And it was just a wonderful event, well attended. And you were master of ceremonies, and you did a really good job.
Well, thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate it. I tried to go with those things without a script. I even did that on the campaign trail. I guess it's a gift at times. Sometimes I can just pick up a mic and roll with it. It was a great event. We had lots of people. We had our largest turnout we ever had, and so it turned out really well. And lots of people from local, state, and federal government was there. It was a great night.
Yeah. Now we didn't have any gubernatorial candidates because there's 12 running, Margie, but I think there was a larger competing Lincoln dinner somewhere.
Yes, there's another county.
Yeah. I think Thomas Massey made a reference to it.
Right.
So anyway, he and everybody had a chance to speak, and Thomas Massey told the same joke he did the last time he was here about the water heater at the jail.
At the jail,
That's a great story.
That is a good story. And ours would probably be similar if we had to take ours out. What I always joke is that I always said they set the water heater and they set the clothes washer, the washing machine, on the concrete and then built the jail around it. Well, that's what I've always said because of the room that it's in.
Right. Well, I've seen situations like that too. Well, Justin, we're not here to talk politics, but it was a really good time.
Oh, it was. Yeah, I had a great time,
and it was good to see all our friends, and good meal too.
Yeah, it was. It was great.
Catered by Karen's.
Karen's, yeah, that's who catered it, and it was a great meal, and the dessert dash was awesome. We was able to get a little bit from it, so that was pretty good.
Yeah, we had a great. It was an Oreo cake, and man, I don't know who took. There was about a fourth of it left, but
somebody always sneaks it out one way or the other.
Well, we all had generous portions of cake, and there was still some left. So
yeah, we had a strawberry one, and it was small, but it was packed full of flavor. It was awesome, and my wife, she was able, after everybody was done, it ended up at our house, so we was fortunate. I don't think there's any left now, but it was very good.
Well, the only thing missing was coffee.
Coffee, yeah.
Coffee would have been good with the cake.
We'll have to add that. We'll add that on the checklist for next time for sure.
All right. Well, let's get off the political thing. And you've been Nelson County jailer since the first of the year, but
yes, sir.
You're no stranger to working in corrections?
Yes, 16 years, going on almost 2 decades total. And like I say, I ran Hardin County Jail, and one of the things I wanted to bring, to our Nelson County Jail was a lot of new ideas, and also with our budget and stuff, and especially with House Bill 5 looming, and we knew it was looming, I wanted to kind of take it upon myself, because I kind of treat our budget like my personal finances. Like I've tried to be a very good constituent of the taxpayers' dollars, and so one of my first things was, just based on my knowledge of working at Hardin County Jail, I started looking at food. I started looking at our consumables, and then I also looked at how much of our money was leaving the state in Nelson County and how much was staying in. So, I talked to, our judge executive, and I told him, I was wanting to, probably going to end up changing almost every contract that we have. So I gave a heads up on it. So so far, we brought about $500,000 that was leaving the state of Kentucky and Nelson County back into Kentucky. So far, our medical contract, it was set to renew at $131,000. They're based out of Tennessee.
Right.
I moved it to a Kentucky company and got it quoted at $119,000. So that saved us some money there. Our food, they were based out of Wyoming. We were spending almost $350,000+ on food a year. We serve on average 127,000 meals a year.
Wow.
I was able to bring it to a Kentucky company that specializes in corrections, and so I was able to lower it from $350,000 to $280,000 on average if our count stays the same. Of course, it fluctuates with the intake. So we've made a lot of positive changes on that, and so I'm trying to look at really everything that we have, and trying to keep, my biggest thing is that there's never an excuse for a dirty jail because you have free labor, and so I've really been on a big clean spree here lately. I'm not where I would like to be at now with it. Well, matter of fact, we got a dorm getting cleaned down there before I left to come up here, and so I'm slowly starting to get everything cleaned, repainted, and even though it's a jail, I want to be sure that the people in there have safe and humane conditions to live in.
Well, one of the big issues that we talked about during the campaign was having safe entry.
Entry, yes.
So how is that coming along?
We just finalized our bid for our body scanner. We just got it in at $214,000. That's going to be paid for out of the commissary fund, so no tax dollars are going to be used to purchase that scanner. M&H Cabinets was gracious enough to offer to build us a brand new booking counter, because that machine is so big. We had to basically had to redo our whole booking area, our intake area. And matter of fact, he's already drew up plans. He's coming back tomorrow, as a matter of fact, to double check the measurements. They always say measure twice, cut once. Yeah. So he's coming down to double check that. And once that counter gets installed, already have the funds secured in our commissary, and we will have that body scanner in there this year. I'm very excited about that. That's going to save lives. Another thing that our medical provider we're switching to in Kentucky is actually a dealer for, is actually these radar sonar systems are starting to use in nursing homes and in hospitals, and are actually making it for corrections now. I just got the 5 sensors in, and what that does is they're mounted up in the cell up there by the light, and as soon as somebody walks in, it starts checking respirations and vitals. And if somebody is overdosing, or if somebody is doing...
This is at the entry, not in their cells.
Oh, well, the holding cells up in booking. So that's kind of where a lot of your stuff is.
All right.
So if we have somebody that's, on suicide watch, or that's on a detox watch in one of our single cells, what this will do is that it'll actually set off an alarm if it detects a drop in heart rate or breathing rate. So it actually will be able to respond as soon as something happens, because by state law, if somebody's on suicide, detox, or medical watch, you have to do a 20-minute check. and I have an electronic system that I just put in down there that actually, it's got a big board, and it tells the deputies when their checks are due, when they have to make their rounds. It logs them electronically, so there's no what I call pencil whipping a log. It's all electronic, and it shows by RFID tag that they was at that cell at that time. And so in combination with that, a combination with these sensors, and also with our new screening process and our new medical provider, my ultimate goal, and again, there's no such thing as a suicide-proof jail or an overdose-proof jail, but I want everybody to be able to look at what we have done and be like, they're doing everything they can do to keep these people safe. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, that's that's our goal.
Now, Justin, I know that you kind of bring in a different philosophy about the jail, and you've actually changed the name. It's been known as the Nelson County Jail as far back as I can go. Mm-hmm. But you bring in a different philosophy and even a name change to kind of let people know that this is more than just a lockup.
Right, and that was one of the things, jails notoriously, basically I just call them a warehouse, jails, you just throw people away, and from all my years in working in this, I've seen that if you lock up an addict and you don't give them any treatment in between, if they got a year or two, you don't give them any treatment in between those two times, you're releasing an addict back into society. And chances are, as soon as they get released, they're going back to what got them arrested in the first place. So my goal was to offer more programs. I've started back up AA at the jail. I've started up female AA that's starting next week. I fired back up our GED program at the jail. We're also offering a program called Portals New Direction, and what that is, that's for inmates that if they don't have a social security card or a driver's license or an ID or government stuff, it gives them a chance to get all the documentation and stuff they would need before they get released. If they need a social security card or a driver's license, we pay for it out of the commissary fund, which is a non-taxpayer account, so they have those forms available or those documents when they're ready to get out. We also do an MRT class, which is moral recognition therapy, which basically tries to show them, basically based on morals, how to differentiate between good and bad actions. And so another thing I'm getting ready to start back up too, and it was COVID kind of put it on a hiatus, was more religious services in there as well. Because we have so many different denominations, I want to be sure everybody, has access to that as well. So I'm trying to add as many programs up there as our schedule and our small jail will allow, and there's going to be more to come. But I do believe that unless you do something, and whether or not if I get somebody a GED and they're able to get their first real job, maybe, if maybe, they go through our MRT class and maybe it gives them a little bit different way of thinking, or maybe if I can get them to like Isaiah House or Arc Recovery Center, after they're released, maybe I can give them a fighting shot, and not just be this revolving door. And so, but that's without saying that there are some bad people up there. Out of the 116 that we got up there right now, there's about 30 that if I was to just open the door and let them out, I can guarantee somebody's house is going to get burglarized, somebody's going to get hurt. Basically what I would call them predators, basically, that prey on people. But the other larger group of people in there, your 60 or 70 people, are people that are suffering from a substance abuse program, or substance abuse issue, I should say. And we just really going to try to help them out. I'm all for keeping the bad people in there, the ones that are going to hurt people, but the people that are suffering from some type of addiction, I really want to try to help them, in some way, shape, or form. Because in all my years of doing this business or whatever, it has been a revolving door. And I'm not naive enough to say that, I'm one little cog in this criminal justice system. So, I've never promised anybody, well, I'll be jailer and I'll solve all the criminal problems in Nelson County. I mean, it's not the case, but, out of 10 people, if I can hit about one or two, to me, that's a win. That's a win for everybody. Yeah, so.
Well, and we were talking earlier before we started the show about does work release or
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yes.
And I'm really excited to get that started. So right.
tell us all about
I will tell you all about it. So that was one of my, when I was out on the campaign trail knocking on doors all over the county, I got asked a few questions, and one of the ones that always came up, why is LaRue County over here picking up our garbage, Justin? Why is that happening? And that's a big question that I'll answer real quick, is that basically LaRue County has a state highway contracts. Well, that just touches the state highways, and we're going to work on getting into that program as well, because they pay per bag of garbage and how much you pick up as well. But also you got county roads that the state don't touch as well. So that was one of my deals, is I was like, you know what, we got inmates that are sitting in jail that we're paying for their room and board. I think it's only fair that we recoup, or get something out of, what we're investing into that. First thing I did was talk to Tim, our judge executive, told him, what I was wanting to do with all of it. And our trial run has been the bulky item pickup. We're sending out four inmates a day. They're going out Monday through Friday. I talked to Chris at the road department, and he told me that historically this year they would have had to pay seasonal workers $20 an hour, to help cover that, that extra manpower that they need.
Right.
So that's saving us $3,600 a week. The state, and this is not a rate that I set. So, some people may be like, well, you're only paying them 63 cents a day. No, this is a state rate. It is what the state pays an inmate for a day's worth of work, 63 cents a day. And of course they get the opportunity to go out, work. All the inmates that get to go out are tickled. They, instead of looking at four walls, they actually get to do something constructive, help out the county. And it's been going great. Last Friday, as jailer, I have a duty to not only check on the jail, but also our inmates we go out. So I'm notorious for popping in at times at random places, just to check on stuff. And I happened to see one of our crews out towards the northern end of the county, and I went and checked on them, and they was picking up limb debris, just working as hard as they could, smile on their face. And I was proud. I was like, this is what the county needed. And so this is just the first start of this. I'm wanting to expand this a lot larger than what it is now. Our next goal that we're going to be doing is we're going to have inmate crews go out, and just so everybody knows, our previous jailer Buck Snellen is now a deputy under me. Isn't that kind of a change for everything? He has come back. He has come back in a part-time status to assist with our road crews. So he's going to be doing our road crews for going out picking up garbage on these roads once we fire it up, and then we're also going to have a mowing crew. It's going to be maintaining a lot of the county properties, ball fields, and stuff of that nature. And once we get this going and we get all the schedules lined out and stuff, there's a next phase of this I'm wanting to bring out. And we did this over at Hardin County. Now, of course, I don't have a 160-bed work facility like I had over at Hardin County, so we'll have to manage our crews out, as to where there's maybe 3 going out with each crew versus 4, however we're going to manage it. But if it is a nonprofit as well, they can go through the training, which the Department of Corrections gave me permission to give the training. I had to give it to everybody that has an inmate outside of the jail. They have to come sit through a class with me. And I have to tell them, the do's and don'ts, what they can and can't do. And we can have nonprofits that, if they got a room or something that needs to be painted or something like that, if they go through the class, they can sign out an inmate. Like I said, these are low-level offenders. These are your child support, code checks,
Right.
People that's got an out date that they're looking towards the outside. So, we can go and utilize them to help out some of our nonprofits in the county as well. So, to me, it's a win-win. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, I think the last figure I figured up is that 1 year's worth, if you base it on $20 an hour and a 4 inmate crew going out all week for an entire year, is almost over $160,000 in wages saved. So, if we got 4 crews going out, I mean, we're talking pushing close to a half a.
Saving the county.
Saving the county. So, I mean, you're talking, if you had to count it as wages that you would have to hire to do it, I mean, we're talking, upwards of, $500 million, or not $500,000, saved. So, I mean, that's something that we're really, really looking forward to as far as getting all that. I mean, I think, and one thing I noticed when I was out on the campaign trail is that, you got 3 different type of people. You got people that's never had a family member that's been in jail, and they're the ones that are lock them up, throw away the key, they're a burden to our county. And a lot of times I've seen those people being converted once a family member gets arrested, and then their outlook on that changes. But everybody that I talk to feels like that, we're having to fund this jail. It's coming out of, our general fund. It's costing all of us money to run it. So, like, the general person wants to feel like that they're getting something out of that. So I think that the inmate work program, helps bridge that gap. And with this body scanner coming in as well, with inmates going out, even though they're low-level inmates, you always increase your risk of contraband coming in the jail. So, even though they're searched when they come back in, this body scanner is going to add to that as they come back in.
And they have people overseeing them.
Overseeing them, yes. Yeah, they are always within, they don't get to go like to the other side of a field or somewhere. They always have to be close proximity inside of where they're at. And, every jail, and I'll throw this out as a disclaimer, this is why we pick low-level offenders for this, because every jail, and it's going to happen to us. I'll go ahead. You can say you heard it here first. Every jail, and I'm hoping it's a year or 2 from now when it happens. But every jail that has a work program, an inmate will have a fight with their significant other, or have a family member that's sick, and they're not thinking as clearly as they normally would, and they will call, or they will try to dash sometimes. You know what I mean? I mean, normally every jail has about 1 a year, and normally they're picked up about 24 to 48 hours after it happens, because they go straight there to their girlfriend's house. So it's really easy to do it. But they're they're nonviolent people, but that's one of the things that comes with the work program. When you hear a lot of times when you hear of a escape, it's really a walk-off is what they consider. But they all the inmates sign. I tell all the inmates that if they walk off, and I got it signed in their file, I say, if you walk off from our job site, I'm charging you with escape second, and you're going to get 5 additional years added on your sentence. And I keep true to my word on that. Because if they do walk off, I will make sure that they get extra time. And they'll never be, if they ever have to come back to jail, they'll never be able to work outside ever again. I mean, that pretty much takes that off the table forever.
Now, escape second, that's a felony.
That's a felony. It's Class D. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's another Class D felony. So if they walk off, that's what they get hit with.
All right, Justin, let's take a pause. And
All right.
Take a break for some commercial messages. You're listening to Bradford and Brooks and our very special guest, Nelson County Jailer Justin Hall. We'll be back in a moment. Please stay tuned. All right, you're back with Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford with you till the top of the hour. And our special studio guest here at WBRT is Justin Hall. Justin is Nelson County Jailer and jailer at the Nelson County Correctional
Center, yeah. Correctional.
Center
We can call it complex. That makes it sound even extra important. So I'm cool with that.
Well, it's not just a change in the name. And I think during the campaign you spelled it out really well, that you don't want it to just be a warehouse for bad guys. You want people to be able to take advantage of things that they may be able to change their life if they want to.
Absolutely. And, the more people that we get to get off drugs and to actually, be able to be predominant members of society. And as we talked before, I just recently got a call from an inmate's family member that called and asked if her son was in jail. And when I told her, yeah, he's here, she was happy that he was there because, and then she got to tell me a little bit about her backstory, and was telling me that, well, she could sleep tonight knowing that he was in jail and she wasn't getting a call that he was getting an overdose. And that, I've been in this business long enough, I hear stories like that, but if everybody listening just thinks about that, they're actually getting a call that their family member is in jail, and that's a relief to them. I mean, if that doesn't tell you how this hits home, I don't know what does. Right. It really does.
Well, Justin, I know that the justice system gets criticism, and I know that
Right.
from I think a statistic from the ACLU that, and this, I guess it's nationally, 74% of people in jail haven't been convicted, and I mean I think to the at first look that sounds like wow,
Right.
but for local jails, there's a reason why they're not convicted yet.
Right. And the state of Kentucky has a pretrial process, and a lot of those are handled, through our district court, Judge Kelly, because most cases start out in district court.
Right.
And the pretrial process, it looks at previous criminal history, severity of the current charge, and it's actually a very fair system. If you missed court and stuff before, it takes all this into consideration, and and of course everybody's presumed innocent until proven guilty.
Sure.
The pretrial comes back low, moderate, or high, is what it calls. And if somebody is low or moderate, most of the time the judges will either unsecure or do a surety bond. Somebody will sign out and say, if you don't show up to court, then you owe the court X amount of dollars.
Right.
And I will say, of course, no system's perfect, but I will say, from what I see, it's very fair. But Jim, you may remember in my last physical court, when I was talking, our recidivism rate at that jail down there is 87%. So 87% of the people that's in that jail right now is a repeat offender. And if you look at that, I'm sure more than likely there's several that's missed court date. And pretty much if they miss a court date, there's a cash bond because, you haven't demonstrated that you're going to show up to court. And that's really what the courts want. They want you to be able to show up to court. And also they want to look at, too, if it's a drug charge or something like that they're not releasing you back into an environment where you're going to self-harm, hurt yourself, overdose. So it's as far as being a judge, and one of them decisions that, of course, I don't get to make as jailer, but, I mean, you got to think every one of them decisions that you make on a bond can affect somebody else. It can affect a victim. It can affect that person when they walk out. So, I mean, that's a lot of pressure, on one person, and like I say, Judge Kelly does a great job at it. But either side of the fence, there's really, I haven't found anybody that's totally happy with it, because there's some people that, regardless of what the crime is, they want them in jail, $1 million cash bond on, a cold check, whatever it is. But then you got on the other side, you got people that, want to give people a chance to rehabilitate and to possibly do stuff. So it's a hard line to balance. And really, the way I look at it, it's community safety. You have to look at, if this person gets out, are they going to hurt somebody when they get out? Are they going to steal something when they get out? Are they going to, if they're in there for an assault or a terroristic threatening, are they going to get out and go straight to that person's house? Right. And of course, our jail is a Vine jail. Our jail management system talks with the Victim Notification Center. So anybody that has somebody in jail, they can sign up for it. As soon as they're released out of our system, it's calling their phone or texting them. Right. So, which is a great system. I mean, it's no telling how many people nationwide it's saved, or at least give them a heads up to go somewhere else. Because I get calls from a lot of people that's terrified. If they have somebody that, if they're a victim in a crime, I've had people break down with me on the phone, say, well, I'm just worried when he gets out, and I'll help walk them through how to set up on Vine and stuff. And, and you wish there was more you could do, and stuff. And ultimately, that's when it goes out of the jailer's hand into the court's hands and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's, I'm really, as far as jailer, and I'm sure Raymond, our sheriff, will tell you the same thing, I'm really at everybody's worst day, regardless. The only good day I'm at's when they get released. I'm really happy for that. But I would say everybody that's in there, I'm an uncertified counselor to them, and I do try, I try to look, I take the the aspect, and I try to look at everybody in there as a human being. I really do. And there's some people in there that, even though there are human beings, that they are just naturally an evil person. Of course, and I treat them just as fair as I would somebody else. Part of the hardest part, I would say, is about being in corrections is that I have to treat somebody that's charged with a sex abuse case or a molestation case the same as that person that walked in on that child support or that cold check, and that is a special thing to have to do. But you have to look at it as when you leave the jail. You leave that behind you and you go home to your family. When you step foot into the jail or whatever, it's not your job to judge those people. It's the courts, and ultimately they divvy out the punishment.
Well, Justin,
I'm sorry.
just quickly, Justin, while we're still talking about the justice system, and you mentioned this off the air, and I don't know what percentage of inmates are waiting for trial, but
About 60%.
what would it be like if people weren't released? Because I think that statistic,
Right.
is probably pretty close, like you said,
Right,
to what we have here in our county jail, but it doesn't take into consideration the released on recognizance and
Right.
and the other ones who are released from jail.
The last numbers I pulled from our system, we book in on average 1,800 to 2,000 people a year through the jail. So, and there's 116 down there on average right now. So if you think if those didn't get released, even if 10% more didn't get released, we would be in a housing crisis. So it's really what I always tell people, it's keeping Otis Campbell away from Jeffrey Dahmer is the best way I can describe it. It really is what you're trying to do. You're trying to weigh the good versus the bad. Who, once they get out, would be safe for somebody, and it's a hard judgment to make. But
Of course, a lot of that is up to the pretrial.
The pretrial and the judge,
to
yes.
do all those evaluations.
Right, and they do all those, and of course, a lot of people don't realize is that, jailer and deputy jailers, we possess the same arrest authority and stuff as, sheriff deputies and stuff. So if somebody brings drugs into, matter of fact, I got a case that's going through right now. We're getting ready to get warrants on where we had some drugs dropped off at the jail about a month ago, and so that person's getting ready to get arrested here before too long. And so, if they bring drugs that's going to possibly hurt our inmates or staff, I'm going to make sure that I got a bed open for them, because that's one thing I don't mess with. Because, if we did not catch that and that got into the jail, we could have had somebody overdose, and that's not a call that I want to make to anybody's family.
Right.
Ultimately, the buck stops with me. Anything that happens up there, even if a staff made a mistake, anything like that, of course, we're all human. Ultimately, it's my fault. Ultimately, I could be, off work that day, but it's my fault. So I try to, you can ask any of my staff members, I'm always analyzing every little process that we have, and I'm trying to always look at the best way to keep the inmates safe, staff safe, and to also improve our conditions down there. So it's a full-time job. I will say everybody's getting their money's worth out of me.
Mark, you had a question.
Yeah, I wanted you to talk about the mental health issue.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
That you have to deal with inmates.
And right now we have about, and of course, again, as a disclaimer, I'm not a mental health professional, and nobody come to me for mental health or medical advice. Go to your professionals for that. But I will say, in my unofficial, non-medical opinion, we have about 5 inmates down in our jail right now that I would deem that have a mental illness or of some type. I'm sure a doctor, and even though we have a medical provider inside of the jail, mental health, when they shut down the state, a lot of the state mental health hospitals, they did not put anything in place to replace it. So the county jails turned into de facto mental health hospitals, which is the absolute worst place for anybody with mental health to be at. So one thing I'm introducing, and this is starting next month, it's not going to cost the taxpayers any additional money, but I am offering, of course we do have 24-hour on-call medical at the jail, 40 hours with a nurse on site with an on-call doctor. That's what we have now. But I'm also adding 2 hours a week of mental health on top of the contract that we have now. So these inmates, like these 5 that I mentioned, I can get them in to see a provider, maybe alter some medication, maybe be able to help them get on something that hopefully when they got released, maybe, you know, it would affect their behavior enough to maybe they wouldn't reoffend, you know. And the hardest problem is that I've noticed, and I think a lot of people would agree with, is that people with severe mental illness, once they get on a medication that works and they're doing really good, for some reason it's like, well, I don't need this anymore. I'm doing so good right now, I don't need this. So they'll stop taking it. And with any psychotropic or any type of mental health medication, a lot of times it's a residual effect. Like, you'll have to take it for 2 months to see the effects, but then it may take 2 months for it to get out of your system. So gradually there's a decline. And then by the time the person gets into the mental state, you know, they're back to where they was at the beginning, and then a lot of them don't really see the improvement till they're back on medicine again. They still think that their behavior is normal, unfortunately. It is, but that's one thing I'm happy to offer is the mental health portion of it. Like I said, we're starting out with 2 hours a week, which doesn't sound like much, but it's more than what's ever been offered down there before.
Yeah,
So
you were talking about the suicide watch.
the suicide watch, and like I say on the, you're talking about the sensors. You're talking about, the sensors. The matter of fact, they're sitting in my office right now. We're waiting on the protective covers to get in. But another thing that I purchased for the jail, and this was a tax-free purchase as well, is that I'm putting sensors in our isolation cells, and our isolation cells are used for people on suicide watch, a detox watch, a medical watch, something that you really can't have them around people. And by state law, we have to do a check every 20 minutes on that. But you know just as well as I do, a lot can happen in 20 minutes, you know. And, and regular checks are an hour on regular cells. So what this monitor is doing, we're going to have an alarm set up in booking. There's a screen. It kind of reminds me, if you ever go to a hospital, it's got the EKG boards up there with the strobes, going through. That's what it's like. As soon as somebody walks in, it's got sonar and radar, and it starts measuring the respirations and heartbeats of the person inside there. Once it drops below a certain threshold, if somebody was actively trying to commit suicide or overdosing, it sets off an alarm in booking to where we can respond in a matter of seconds versus, it may be, let's say we do a check and this inmate does whatever they're doing a minute later. I mean, that's 19 minutes. And unfortunately, if somebody's heart stops or something, it takes about 6 minutes of no oxygen into your brain before you're done, unfortunately. And so the ultimate goal is to save lives. I want our jail to be positive. For the longest time, it's been looked at as a dump, a money pit, a drain on society, did not have the best reputation in the world. And I'm wanting it to be, they got their stuff together down there. They're looking out for the people incarcerated. They're looking out for the people on the outside, keeping them safe. And they're running a very efficient jail with our tax dollars. And if I can accomplish all that in 4 years, and another thing is I want people to walk in, and right now it's not there. That's why I got people down there cleaning right now. I want people to walk in and be like, it don't look like much on the outside, but this is a clean place, like I tell my staff, I want them to take pride in where they work at or whatever. There's no excuse that our jail should be dirty. There is no excuse that our walls are not painted. There is no excuse for our outside. And I'm getting ready to paint the outside a darker gray because, the distillery being so close and the ash that gets on it. But I want us to take pride in our jail again. I mean, it's something that we have. It's a necessary evil, as I call it. We have to have it. So why not take pride and make it the best it can be? And, speaking on that real quick, I've made some proposals, and talked to fiscal court a little bit about the possibility of getting a new jail. Of course, all that's on hold depending on what this barrel tax does, and that's going to be devastating if it goes through. But my mindset is I'm pretending like that's not an option on the table, and I'm going to take what we have. I'm going to make it the best it can be, and I'm hoping that at the end of the day, people, see that we take pride in what we do down there. Yeah, so I mean, that's ultimately, that's what I really hope people take away. And another thing is that it's always been out of sight, out of mind. I want people, if they want like kids tours and stuff, to see a little, do a little, like, because I remember when I was little, we went to the jail, and got to walk around and kind of see, hey, you don't want to come here, I'm all for, it's a public building, so I think people it shouldn't be like this curtain that's down. I mean, people should know what goes on in there. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to do like the Big Brother TV show and have cameras where everybody can see it. It's scared straight, but I am going to, I want people to feel like that there's a lot of transparency there. Mm-hmm. I really do. So ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what I'm hoping that we accomplish.
All right. Well, we're down to about the last minute and a half, Justin. Anything in particular you want to leave with our listeners about the jail? And I mean, a lot of people have loved ones who passed through the
absolutely
through the jail, and I think it would be comforting to know that they got a jailer who's looking out for them. Right,
and what I will tell everybody that's listening is that one of the campaign promises I said is that my cell phone number never changed after the election. I mean, it's public. Anybody wants to get hold of it. And there's people that do take me up on that. Trust me, I get calls all hours of the night. But I think people appreciate the ability to be able to get hold of somebody if they have a family member or have never been through the legal process, and I can kind of tell them what to expect, what's going to happen, and stuff like that. But we have a lot of people, a lot of deputy jailers down there that care about our county, and a lot of times, they feel like that they're kind of the black sheep of law enforcement. And, I just want everybody to know that they really do work very hard.
All right. Thank you, Justin. We are out of time. We'll see you next Wednesday for another Bradford and Brooks.
Hometown Radio, WBRT Bardstown, 1320 AM, 97.1 FM, and on 94.9 FM in Lebanon, playing all the classics from country's legends.